Here are 30 life-changing career lessons that I learned the hard way before turning 30 years old. And if you're wondering why you should listen to this handsome Asian guy, I am a recruiter at Google, but I had to change my career 3 times because I used to hate my job. So I'm hoping that you can learn from my mistakes. So in this video, you're gonna get career tips on how to pass more interviews, find your dream job, and get a promotion at work. So stay to the end. And by the way, I didn't want this video to be like 2 hours long, so if there's something that you want more information on or you want me to go farther in depth, just put it down in the comments and I can make a separate video. All right, let's get started. And lesson number 1, you are the problem. That's right, you heard me. We're starting off a little controversial, but it's the truth. When it comes to why you didn't get that job offer or why you're not getting that promotion, 9 out of 10 times, it's your fault. Or in this case, it was my fault. Whenever I'm coaching people or reading comments on my YouTube videos, almost always do people never take responsibility for what they've done or what they didn't do, and they always blame it on something else. If you don't believe me, look at my signs you're gonna get rejected video and look at all of the comments. Most of them will blame something that is not related to their interviewing skills or not related to how little they practiced or not related to how little research they did about the company. As a corporate recruiter, I will tell you most of the reasons why people don't get job offers is just because they bombed the interview or because there was a far better candidate, aka someone who did better in the interviews than you. And as an example of why someone is not able to get promoted, I was once coaching an executive at an engineering firm, and they had gone up for promotion twice but was passed over. But when I asked them, what is the major difference or what is the major responsibility of an SVP versus a vice president, which is what they were, they said the number one difference or the number one change would that be as a SVP, you have to carry a sales quota. So I asked them, how many engineering projects have you sold in the last year? And they said 0. They were the engineering expert on all of the projects that they were involved in, but they had never closed a deal for their engineering firm. And that is the real reason why they never got this promotion, because they haven't demonstrated that they can sell work. So if you're feeling frustrated in your job search or your promotions right now, just take an honest step back and evaluate your performance. Have you been doing everything correct in terms of preparing for interviews, practicing for them, hiring a coach? Have you identified your strengths and weaknesses? Have you looked at your skill gaps and what you're looking to achieve in order to get to the next level? Now, the second lesson is something that I learned the hard way, which is don't be too cheap to get personalized coaching and advice. Yes, you can get free advice on the internet, on YouTube from ChatGPT, but a lot of the advice will be general and it's not going to be customized for your specific situation and your career. Even if you just watch one of my YouTube videos, I cannot make a YouTube video specifically designed for you, your job, and your current situation and what it is that you're applying for or why you're not getting a promotion, because I don't know who you are as an individual. That's why personalized coaching is always worth the ROI. And here are the 4 times where it's actually worth the money to get a career coach. Number 1 is if you're trying to re-enter the job market after taking a break. This could be for medical reasons or maybe you are raising a family. Number 2, you're applying for your dream job at your dream company. You may only get 1 shot at this and you don't want to get blacklisted from that company, so it is worth the money. Number 3, you've been trying to get a job on your own for 2 months and have had no success. It's now worth getting a career coach before you exhaust all your options. Keep in mind, if you apply for 1,000 jobs online and you get rejected 1,000 times, whenever you get a career coach, they can't help you because you're already blacklisted in 1,000 companies' systems. So it's better to get help earlier. And the 4th time you should get a coach is if you're looking to switch or change careers, just like I did when I moved from finance and accounting to sales and marketing, and then from sales and marketing to recruiting. These were pretty drastic changes and there wasn't a lot of transferable skills that overlapped between my 2 jobs. So without a career coach guiding me and telling me how to update my resume or how to ace these interview questions without having the experience, there's no way I could have made that career switch so quickly. That brings me to my next lesson that I learned the hard way, is that you should try to switch careers if you know that you don't like your job before you turn 30. The longer you wait to switch your career, the harder it will be to make that career transition unless you're willing to go back to school and go in debt. The more senior you go up the rankings, the harder it will be for you to transfer or change jobs at the same level without taking a massive pay cut. Now, I do think it is worth taking a pay cut because careers are long. If you change careers at 30, you don't retire till 65. You have 35 years to build a career, which is more than enough time to make up the money that you would have lost. And my next lesson is related to choosing or finding your dream job. You should never choose a job purely based on how much money you can make or how easy the internet makes it look. I know it can be really tempting when you see articles like this about software engineers at 22 years old making 6 figures. But if you aren't gonna like your job, you have to do it for 45 years. So it's not worth being miserable just to get a good paycheck in the beginning. Number 5. Owning your own business is not as fun or easy as the internet makes it out to be. I know Andrew Tate and Ty Lopez and Grant Cardone all advocate for you running your own business because that's the best way to become a millionaire. But you can also become a millionaire by working for the right company and working up the corporate ladder. And as someone who has a regular 9 to 5 and also owns their own business, I can tell you from personal experience that it is really not that easy to make $1 million while running your own business. And if you're thinking that running your own business is great because you get tax benefits, keep in mind that a lot of the advice on the internet about what you can deduct or not deduct is actually incorrect. And if you were ever to get audited by the IRS, you would pay a lot of fines. Now, number 6 builds on the previous one, which is that no job is perfect. And now a lot of people quit their jobs because they want to be their own boss or because they had a toxic manager and that's why they think they should run their own business because they can do better. But if you have a bad boss, just get a new boss or go work for a different company because no job is perfect. And by the way, I love my job, but I think it's really only an 8 out of 10, even on a good day. No job is perfect. There's going to be administrative things that you don't like or some boring responsibilities every once in a while. Keeping that in mind though, because no job is perfect, if you can find a job that satisfies you 7 or 8 out of 10, then that's a really great job and there's no point in giving that up. And my next tip is if you do actually hate your job and you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do, you should first take a step back and think about what does a job actually mean to you and what is the purpose of having a job in your life, because it's going to be different for everybody. If you can understand what the purpose is of your job or what you're trying to get out of your job, that's going to help you set expectations of how to measure happiness in your job. And usually people fall into one of 3 major buckets when they try to think about what it is to have a career. And the first one is to make a lot of money. So even if your job isn't the most satisfactory or makes you the most happy, but if it makes you a lot of money and then you can use that money to achieve your financial goals, whether that's buying a new house or retiring at 40, then that is still a good job for you because the number one priority is making a lot of money. Or maybe you look at a job as a way to find purpose or have meaning in your life, like you wanted to be a doctor or a nurse, or you want to be a teacher, for example. Teachers, unfortunately, in America do not make a lot of money, but it is a very fulfilling and purpose-driven career. So if that's what you want to do, then you should be happy being a teacher. And the third bucket, or the third type of career that people usually want, is one that provides work-life balance. So it may not pay the most amount of money, or it may not give you a full meaning of purpose in your life, but it's got perfect work-life balance, which allows you to spend time with your family while still providing for them and making decent money. Now, my next career tip actually is a bonus on top of that, which is if you have a job that gives you purpose or meaning or has great work-life balance, but what it doesn't do is make a lot of money, you could keep that job and do a side hustle to increase your income so that you can keep your job that you love while also making more money. Now, I have a whole video on here on some of the best side hustles that I think you can do while working a full-time job, so check that out. Next, when it comes to choosing a career or a dream job, a lot of people struggle with that balance between what they're passionate about and whether or not it should be integrated as a part of their career. For example, I was once coaching somebody who loves playing basketball. They did not play basketball in college, but because they loved basketball so much, they told me that their dream job was to become the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, is that a realistic goal for someone who's an average basketball player? No. So for them, it was actually better to use basketball as a hobby or side hustle in addition to their regular 9-to-5 job. So they're equally fulfilled now coaching basketball for their son's basketball team and being a private one-on-one basketball coach while maintaining their job as a financial analyst. I also had someone who quit their corporate job making $200,000 a year because they loved playing the guitar. And they thought that they could be a guitar teacher full-time. And after 6 months of trying to do it on their own, they realized that they would only make at most $60,000 a year, and turns out playing the guitar every single day actually made it less fun and they were less excited about it. Lesson number 10, if you're gonna get a master's degree to switch careers, it's only worth it if you can get it from a top 15 university. As a recruiter at a top tech company, I can tell you if you have a master's degree from a university I've never heard of, it's almost as useless as not having no experience at all. And on top of that, if you don't get a job immediately after getting your master's degree, it's almost like you never got one to begin with, because I'm not gonna wanna hire someone who wasn't able to get a job 12 months after completing their master's, because I'm going to assume that no company wanted you because you're not good at this job. This brings me to my next lesson, which is certifications and degrees alone are not enough to get you a job. You also need to have a relevant work experience that could either be done for free or through internships. Don't be fooled by the advertisements for those coding boot camps or UX boot camps, because if you just graduate from a boot camp without doing any real work outside of your projects, you are not going to get a job. Next, do your best to time the job market with whatever career decisions or career moves you're trying to make. For example, if you're trying to do a career switch, you should never do it when there is a tough job market like right now in 2025. You should only do it when the job market is booming like it was maybe in 2021. Or if you're thinking about taking a risky job at like a startup, I would only do it if you feel like the job market is good enough 1 year from now so that if you wanted to quit, you could actually find an exit option. Or if you have enough money saved up where you and your family could survive you working at a job that doesn't pan out financially. Or if you're thinking about taking a career break, I would only do it if you foresee the job market being strong 1 or 2 years from now. Next, as a general career lesson, you should work as hard as you possibly can and work as much as possible earlier on in your career when you are young and you have the energy and you don't have as many responsibilities and commitments like picking your kids up from school. There are obvious benefits of working hard and putting in the time, like you get to build your skills faster, you can get promotions faster, but more importantly than all of that is the harder you work at your job and the more time you spend doing it, the faster you'll learn if you actually like your job or not. Keep in mind, every job is going to feel fun when you first do it because you're learning all the time and everything is going to be a new experience for you and a new challenge. And overcoming challenges and figuring out problems and puzzles is fun. So you need time to figure out once you get through all of that and the honeymoon phase of your job, as I like to say, once that's complete, then you can actually take a step back and ask yourself, do I like this career? And if you don't, you will have much more time to switch careers because as I mentioned before, you want to switch careers before you turn 30. This brings me to my next career lesson, which is once you've found the job that you actually like and you want to pursue it and you know that you're going to do this for a long time, as you think about progressing up the corporate ladder, you need to focus less on your technical skills and focus more on your soft skills and your people skills. The higher your level, the less hands-on work you typically have to do, even for engineers. Now, of course, if you want to become an engineering fellow or a principal engineer, then you should still focus on the technical pieces, but a lot of companies don't have that many open positions for principal engineers or fellows. There's a lot more positions open on the managerial track. So you should think about mentoring junior engineers or helping new people on board whenever they join your team or helping with interviews, or if there is a person on your team who gets laid off or gets fired, temporarily step up and become a manager. Or there's someone who is a manager that goes on paternity leave or maternity leave. Why don't you ask to cover them and you can build your leadership skills that way. And number 15, personal brands are built on first impressions. It is far easier to slack off later on after joining a company and building a personal brand as a hard worker than to join being a little bit lazy and then trying to turn it on later on. Now, there's a whole Reddit post that I analyze in one of my other videos that talks about this. So I always tell people in your first day, you should come early and you should stay late. And you should do that for the entire first week because people will get the impression that you love your job and you are not afraid to work hard. And you should always say yes to everything when you first join a company so that people understand or get the impression that you know so much that you can do things outside of your normal responsibilities. Then after you built your personal brand as a hard worker, you can choose to slack off later on and people will just interpret that as you being more efficient. Now this next one is a life-changing networking hack. If there is someone that you work with that you know loves working with you and is super impressed by your work, this could be your coworker or maybe even your boss, because they will move heaven and earth to help you with whatever it is that you need. That could be a referral to their job, or to connect you with someone in their network, or to help you find a position. So make sure you always keep in touch with them. Now building on top of that, the best way to get a job referral is to never be a stranger, which means you should always talk to the people that are your super connectors or the people that are strongest in your network at least once a year. Try to maintain that relationship so that when you do need something, they won't feel like you're using them and you won't feel bad for asking them for a favor. And honestly, it's super easy. All you need to do is do a phone call for 30 minutes or take them to coffee. It doesn't cost a lot of money or time to do this. This leads me to my next tip, which is that you do not need to have a huge network. You just need to be connected with the right people and the right super connectors. I am an example of that, where I was the first person at my university to ever get a job directly out of school in management consulting. And in order to do that, I didn't need a huge network. I only needed to talk to one director who was able to change my life and give me an opportunity to interview. Next, your boss will be the number one factor or reason as to why you have a good job or a bad job. So make sure you interview your boss before you accept your next job offer to make sure you're not walking into a toxic workplace. And if you want to have the 5 best questions to ask your future boss whether or not they're going to be good for you, you're going to want to watch this video right here. Number 20, Interviews are the most important part of your job search. It is not your resume or who referred you or your LinkedIn profile. It all comes down to how well you interview compared to every other candidate that is competing for the same job as you. And the only way to get better at interviewing is to practice every single day and to watch the YouTube videos that are up on my channel. And if you want to know how to stand out in your interviews, you're going to want to watch this video right over here. My next lesson builds on top of that, which is that you should interview every single year, at least for practice. You don't have to take the job offer, but it's always good to keep your skills sharp. Also, by interviewing every single year, you get to talk to hiring managers and other people in your job at other companies and figure out what skills and experiences are hot in the market and what you need to get if you don't have them right now. I also like to interview every year because I get to see what the market is paying right now for my job. That way I can see if I'm underpaid or overpaid at my current company. And if I'm underpaid, then you can go and tell your manager at your next review that you deserve a raise. Next, when it comes to your actual interviews, it's good to know that the first round interview with the recruiter or hiring manager is usually only focused on whether or not you are a fit for the job. They're going to want to make sure that you meet all of the minimum qualifications, that you can actually do all the things that you said on your resume, and that you have all the right skills that they require for the job. Now, as you move forward in the interview process, when you get to second, third, and final rounds, that's when it's no longer good enough to just be a fit. Being a fit in the final round interviews makes you average, and average is not going to get you a job offer. You need to know how to differentiate yourself in your interviews. It is not good enough to hire you just because you increase revenue by 20%, because every other candidate is also going to say that they increased their company's revenue. So you need to do more than just rely on your results. Now, the next career lesson I didn't learn until I became a FANG recruiter, and that is that your credentials, or where you work and where you went to school, matter the most when it comes to applying for top companies in any single industry. I used to think that if I worked hard and I had good references and I watched these YouTube videos on how to optimize my resume, that would be enough for me to land a job offer. But the ugly truth is that where you work today has the biggest influence on whether or not a recruiter will even look at your resume and give you the time of day. So if you don't work at a top company in your industry, look to move up the company rankings at least every 2 to 3 years. So for example, if you graduated school and you couldn't get a job at a top company, then go get a job at a startup that no one's ever heard of. But then from that startup, maybe you move from a Series A to like a Series D startup. And then after that startup, you can move to a small publicly traded company, like maybe an Uber or a Lyft or a Snap. And then from there, then you can move up to like a Google or a Facebook. Lesson number 25, companies will only promote you when they've seen that you can operate at the next level. But I'm working extra hard for the same pay. Yep, that's right, and that's too bad, because if you think about it from their perspective, why would they want to pay somebody more money if they aren't even sure if they would be successful or good at that role? So they're going to want to see you do it in a trial period. Now, it doesn't have to be for that long, maybe 3 months to 6 months, to show them that you can operate at the next level. So for example, let's say you are a data analyst and you want to get promoted to a senior analyst. Usually senior analysts will be mentoring and coaching junior data analysts fresh out of school. So when you have a new team member join your team, help them onboard, train them, maybe even help them improve their SQL or Python skills. And you should also demonstrate more leadership capabilities. So you should be leading meetings or leading projects or helping teammates when they get stuck. And if you're looking to move from a senior analyst role to like a managerial role, you're going to want to show them that you can do process improvement activities and that you can identify gaps or weaknesses within your team or your systems and then find solutions in order to improve those. Now, my next lesson is related to negotiating your salary whenever you're interviewing for a job. Obviously, we all want to make more money whenever we switch companies and switch jobs. So my number one tip to you when it comes to negotiating is you should always talk about money before you start the interview process. This is going to be counterintuitive to all of the advice that you're going to see on the internet, which will tell you that you should talk about money at the very end. But as a recruiter, I will tell you that it's far better to talk about your compensation expectations up front, because you don't want to waste your time. So if they ask you what your salary expectations are, you should be quite honest and tell them what you're looking for. Also, if you work in any of these states, they're legally required to tell you what the salary range is if you ask them. So make sure you ask them first before telling them what you want. Now, if you aren't sure how much money you should make or what you should ask for, I always recommend the 20% rule, which is to take your current total compensation or base salary and then add 20% on top of that, and that's a good starting point for when they ask you what your salary expectations are. I've worked with candidates who didn't tell me how much money they wanted to make. They did 5 hours of interviews only to find out that the job that I had was at a lower level and at lower pay. And then they got mad that they wasted their time interviewing with us. Now, my next lesson is, as a corporate recruiter who's been hiring people, I'm going to give you the honest truth. People who work on the same team and do the same job at the same level will be paid differently. And there's many reasons for that, but if you are finding out that you are the lowest paid person on your team, I don't think it's a reason for you to quit or be mad. You should definitely bring it up to your manager so they can bring you up to market and increase your compensation that year, but it's not a reason to quit, especially if you were already able to get a 20% increase on your pay when you switched and got this job. As they say, comparison is the thief of joy. Now, why would somebody actually get paid more than you if you're both doing the same amount of work? Well, there's a couple reasons. Number one, maybe you had joined later on or earlier when the market was a little bit lower and your job was not in high demand. And so therefore, the market rates at the time were a little bit lower. Or maybe the person who joined after you had multiple competing offers from top companies who paid more than what your company normally does. Or maybe your teammate just joined you from one of your top competitors and that top competitor was paying them more than your current company does. So those are many different reasons that are outside of your control as to why someone may be paid more than you. Now, if you are thinking about quitting, this brings me to my next lesson, which is you should never quit a job without another job lined up. I've talked to many people and I've coached tons of people who said they were burnt out or they just wanted a break or they were doing some soul searching and so they just quit their job without anything planned, expecting the job market to be great whenever they were ready to re-enter the workforce. Or they were overestimating their market value and thinking that they would easily be getting another job. As we've seen in 2025, there's been huge fluctuations going up and down. So you can't guarantee a strong job market when you're ready to re-enter the workforce. So if you are burnt out and you do want a break, what I always recommend is you interview, get a job offer, and then set a start date 1 or 2 months out from when you accept the offer. That way you can still rest, recharge, and relax, knowing that you already have a job lined up and future income coming. And as a recruiter, I can tell you, yes, it's very normal for us to wait 1 to 2 months for someone to join. And the better that you do in your interviews, the more leverage that you have. And so as long as you're crushing your interviews and they really want you, they would have no problem accommodating 1 to 2 months. Also, if you need to transfer your H-1B, for example, companies are used to waiting 2 months because that's usually how long it takes. Now, my next lesson is a huge cautionary tale that I've seen firsthand and I have felt pretty guilty about, but I will warn you that if something seems too good to be true whenever you're offered a new job, it probably is. For example, companies that pay the most in their industry usually have the worst work-life balance or have a really toxic work culture or generally tend to fire a lot of people every single year and put them on performance improvement plans. Or if you are accepting a job because of future promises, for example, they tell you, hey, I know that you don't like the pay package right now, but I promise you I'll make it up to you in bonus time next year, and I'll give you a really fat raise. Or they tell you, I know you're not happy with the level or the job title, but I promise that I can get you a promotion in 1 year. All of these things are not legally enforceable and they cannot put them in an offer letter. So there is no reason for a hiring manager to stick to their word and live up to their promises. And so if you're accepting a job offer based on these promises in order to make you happy, I have seen firsthand that this has not worked out. And my last lesson is that your physical and mental health are way more important than any amount of money that you could possibly make. When I worked in management consulting, the partners used to make millions of dollars a year, but most of them were divorced multiple times and they never got to see their kids grow up. I also had friends who worked in investment banking, and even though they made $500,000 straight out of school, they worked every single day and honestly, they look terrible. And right now, they tell me their biggest regret is that they didn't spend more time dating, meeting other people, and living their life. So take that vacation or go play some golf and hang out with friends. Your career and life is long, so make sure that you can enjoy it. And if you want more career tips and lessons like this so you can get a promotion, find your dream job, or ace more interviews, you're going to want to click subscribe to this channel because I post free weekly videos every single week. Thank you all for watching and learning what are the 30 career lessons that I learned the hard way before turning 30. So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and take advantage of these tips to help you in your career.